Hello, everyone. I'm here with my friend Christine, who is an ENFP, and we talk all the time about cognitive functions and sort of how they compare to astrology and the law of attraction and a bunch of other spiritual stuff and weird stuff like that, if you're into that. And I thought it would be fun for us to do a sort of like ENFJ, ENFP interaction, and also sort of share some of the theories that we have thought of. And also, for those of you who don't already know, the link is below, but I do have a Facebook group that is astrology and Carl Jung's cognitive functions combined. And you may recognize Christine as one of the moderators from that. So, Christine, tell us, how did you discover that you were an ENFP, and what all does that mean to you? Let us know the journey, the beginning, middle, of an end of this sort of self-discovery.
Okay. Let's see. So, I learned about MBTI in high school, and it was in like a psychology class, and we took the, I think it was the human metrics test.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the long one, and okay, so I took this test, and I got ENFP the first time, and I was so pissed off, because I was like, what the fuck, I'm not a thinker. I was like, no, I don't want to be a feeler, like, that sucks.
Oh, so you thought you were a thinker.
Yeah, kind of, because, I don't know, I was just always interested in, like, debate and, like, science and stuff like that. I don't know, I mean, I guess I kind of thought I was a feeler, but for the most part, like, I guess as a Capricorn moon too, before I developed my Cancer side, I was not like very feely at all. Like I never really cried. But yeah, I would just,
which is interesting, because it's almost an introverted feeling thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't really know. I started to develop my feeler side like more recently, but yeah, to continue, I didn't really think about my results. It kind of just said like, oh, your job should be like a journalist or like a news reporter or something. I was like, oh, what? I don't want to be that. Like, yeah. I don't know.
What did you want to be?
Okay, yeah, this has changed a lot over the years, but
oh yeah, sorry, triggering question, right?
Very true. No, that's okay. Yeah, I don't know, in high school, like, yeah, I was more interested because I mean, we'll get into this later, but I valued a lot more of like the NT type of things. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll get into like CSE or engineering or like mathematics. And yeah, I don't know. It was like, I just kind of looked down on like feeler things in general.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to note too that ENFPs, since FI is your second function, you might have lived most of your high school life just using mostly NE and then developing FI after. So this is normal if you're an ENFP watching to relate to that. So
yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, and so then I went to college. I met an INFJ friend who was pretty into it, and at the time she said like, oh yeah, MBTI is like astrology but better. It's like what astrology wants to be. And now I'm like, okay, I know that's not true, but at the time I was like, okay, this is a good starting point, you know, because it's like a pretty simple theory, you know, it's 4 letters, and then eventually you learn about like the functions and stuff.
Did you like astrology at the time when she said that?
No, I was on the boat of like, oh, this is bullshit. Like,
ooh, you're a scientist.
Yeah, I was all like, NETE looped. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then I just like kind of got into it from there. I would read like type descriptions, and I started out with my own type. I think like Crystal said a similar thing where she mostly wanted to like see her own type first. But yeah, so I did that, and then eventually I learned about the other types. And I just kind of like weirdly became obsessed with it, where I was like wanting to know everyone's types and like guess them, and it started to really make sense for me, like just in my day-to-day life, because I used to look at people and they would be like completely unrelated to each other, but I would think like, oh, that person reminds me of this person, or like just not even how they look, but just their vibe, like their essence.
That almost sounds like you are using a little bit of FE. Or like almost like it was opening your eyes to this sort of FE reality. Maybe not, but I feel like I naturally do that. Like I've always compare people to other people?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess before I kind of thought everyone is like an individual and like no one's the same, but
I mean, they are as well.
yeah, it's true. But yeah, there are patterns for sure. And I think like, everyone kind of experiences like similar, even if like you're the same type, you'll have different life experiences, but you'll process it in a similar way. Yeah. So I guess that was how I got into MBTI.
It's so ironic that the what sold you on MBTI was that it wasn't like astrology, and now look at you. You love astrology.
Yeah, no, I'm a woo-woo bitch.
How did that happen? How did you go from scientist to woo-woo bitch?
Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think, I went from one side where it was like, oh, I value like all the thinking and like the sensing type of world when I was a kid, just because that was the environment that shaped me. Like I grew up around a lot of sensors. And then I got really angry because I was like, oh, that's like kind of suppressing a part of me if I'm only thinking about like sensing and thinking things. I didn't realize like I had this other side of me, which was actually the stronger side, and it was like the NF side. So then I swung that way completely, and I was like, oh, science is bullshit. And like all this stuff, and I got into like conspiracy theories, and
I feel like ENFPs are like pendulums, like going back and forth to different things. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god, it's so true. And then I turned into like tragic artist type of story, like a Greek tragedy.
Wow. This story is going in so many directions.
No, yeah. And then now I'm more like, okay, I see the point of both, and then I think like that's kind of an Age of Aquarius thing where we're gonna integrate science and art and all these other subjects, and it won't be an opposition thing, but it'll be coming together. So
yeah, I love that. So you're an ENFP. How did you get into astrology?
Oh yeah, so
because this girl right here is an astrologer in my eyes. Maybe not in your eyes yet. But
oh my gosh,
she has so much insight about astrology, more than me, I think. Because I feel like it takes a certain level of NE, in my opinion, to understand how all of the different moving parts in astrology work together. And I sometimes feel like I have to like learn this and then this part and then this part, and it feels very slow moving. There's just so much that astrology can be kind of overwhelming for me. I love it, and I'm obsessed with it now. But what was that introduction like for you?
Yeah. So that's interesting you mentioned that. So I feel like it's a good segue into where I think astrology is a good combination of art and science too. And I feel like it allows me and all of us to use like our analytical abilities, but also interpretative ones. And so I got into astrology, let me think. Oh, so I had a friend in one of my art classes actually who she was really into it, and she was an INFP. And so like she told me a little bit about my chart, like mostly my big three, and it was like Cancer, Capricorn, Leo. So that was the first thing I knew. And I didn't think much of it. I related to being a Cancer a little bit, like I felt like, oh, I'm that way sometimes, but eventually like I was talking to a couple people about it, and they were like, oh, you should learn about like this thing in astrology. So I just started like out of nowhere, like went on a rampage where I was reading like every cafe astrology page, watching a ton of
When was the rampage? 2017, 18?
It was actually last year.
Wow. You like literally, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, so it was really recent. Actually, I was into MBTI for a longer time than astrology. And I felt like it made it more intuitive because I feel like astrology is a very like complex subject, and it's more all-encompassing than MBTI. Like MBTI is kind of like what's in your mind.
Yes.
And it's definitely related to astrology, but it goes into like all these other things. But anyways, yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know. Sorry. Would you agree? Just my theory, I guess. I feel like NFPs and NFJs both tend to be interested in both of these sorts of subjects, Myers-Briggs and astrology, because we are just very obsessed with people and how they work. But to me, it seems like astrology, like having NE and TE, is very helpful for soaking up everything. Would you agree?
I totally agree. And I kind of wanted to touch on what you said a couple minutes ago, where you said that like you kind of need to analyze like one part, like really think it through, then move on to the next thing. I feel like that's a TI thing. And the way I do it is kind of opposite, where I'll read like a shit ton of different topics, and then if it's interesting to me, I'll go into depth about it, and then I'll kind of get like TI about, oh, this is how this thing works, and this is where it came from, you know, SI stuff, like, you know, like how there's a bunch of, in astrology, well, Western astrology is based on like all of the Greek myths and goddesses and gods and stuff, and when you realize like how everything is interconnected, it's like so interesting. It's so crazy.
Yeah. So I'm curious about how you learned your process, because so for me, and what I typically suggest to people that are interested in astrology, which is probably going to be very NFJ of me to explain, but I would suggest understand the signs. There are 12 of them. Understand those energies, then understand the planets, and then understand the houses. Just do that in the order. And then once you know those, then they just are kind of like little equations that you put together. That's how I think of it. And I feel like I understand that. I understand how to read a chart, but it's the interconnections. I've not done every equation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I get the essence of the signs and the houses and the planets, but I haven't spent time thinking about each way it could go, and I could get tripped up if I haven't actually spent the time thinking about it. So what are your thoughts on that? Or how did you grasp it? Did you do it in that sort of linear order, or how was that?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good like intro to
Yeah.
astrology. That's definitely like, you have to start small. Like if you just, you know, like start by looking at a chart and like seeing all the aspects. Like everyone I've read their chart for, they would look at it and be like, oh my god, like that's so scary, I can't do that. But it's like, no, it's pretty simple, you know, if you, like you said, reduce it to its bare components. And then I think once you take into account the aspects, the degrees, transits.
Oh yeah, and aspects would probably be after the fourth step.
Yeah. I was gonna say that. Yeah. So aspects would probably be the last thing to learn, but I feel like when you start reading charts, and I talked to, I think, Julia about this, but she knows a lot too. And I
shout out to Julia.
Yeah, she's the best. But yeah, so it's like now I realize, it's not as simple as like, oh, I'm a, you know, everyone talks on sun sign astrology. Like I'm not just a Cancer sun, you're not just a Leo sun, and you're not even just like a 12th house sun or whatever. The aspects will greatly affect how that energy is expressed. You know, retrograde planets will too, and it can even affect things like your appearance, different times in your lives, and then the transits that are happening. You know, those will also be expressed differently, and like even within like what that energy represents, it can be projected in so many different ways. Like I kind of want to get into like the water signs later with like the feeling functions and stuff, but
yeah, before you get into that though, I'm curious if we can sort of learn the ENFP approach to learning things, because it honestly seems like magic to me in a way. Like how does anyone learn things or grasp things without TI? That's amazing. No, but I feel like you just soak things in, and I'm curious, like, and I guess it's sort of counterintuitive. I'm asking for a process, but there wasn't really one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's magic. It's kind of more like a shitstorm. Like,
can you sort of describe or paint a picture of what that was like?
Okay, yeah, to paint a picture, it's like my Google Chrome browser with 20 tabs open. Just of like happy astrology or like YouTube video. Like, I'll just be interested in like one thing. Like, I'll be like, oh, hey, I want to learn about the houses today. And then I'll like find one YouTuber who like I like their perspective. And I usually like, I think without TI, or like with TI as like kind of a more buried down function, I will like accept what they're saying as true at first and just like consider it, and then I'll move on to the next thing. I'll be like, oh, that's not like what I thought it was, and this can kind of cause some problems, like, to be honest, because then I'll be like, oh, I thought like this is what this meant, but it's actually like more complex than that, or
so it's almost like you entertain the idea without even knowing if you agree or not, and that's probably what can help you learn so quickly in a way.
Actually, yeah, that's exactly it. I feel like you know, there's like I told you before, I always assume that I don't know things, and that like you know, there's a lot in this world to learn, and even if like I don't agree with something, I can still like see how it'd be true. So maybe that's like an NE thing too, but yeah, I don't think about like if I agree with it or not. I'm kind of just like, oh, okay, like yeah, that's fine. And I feel like that's a TE thing, where you learn things just to like quickly get the concept, and then, you know, if it's necessary, if it will help you, you learn the TI of it, and then that's where you can really get creative, because like you know, if you don't understand how the parts work, then you can't like do anything with it.
And ENFPs to me seem like you really follow your heart when it comes to curiosity. Like where does that even come from? That's sort of like, oh, I feel like learning about the houses today. All these like, that is the power like of FI compelling you to do that, in my opinion, which sort of goes hand in hand with I can't even remember what we were talking about, because it was like a few months ago now at this point, but Christine and I one time got in a very interesting convo about science and sort of how NFs view it as almost like with a grain of salt in a way, which is maybe not all NFs, but like I think I was thinking about the concept of how do NFs, or how do feelers seek truth, and how do feelers tend to view what truth even is. And I feel like that just there was almost an example of you seeking truth through just following your heart, in the sense of gathering the information to feed your FI, but it was your FI that was still leading that search, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true, actually. And that actually like makes me understand why I guess school was never like my favorite thing to do, because like, yeah, when you're describing like a curriculum kind of for learning astrology, like, oh, first the signs and the houses and this, I'm like I'm like, oh. So like like that makes a lot of sense, you know? But yeah, I don't know, in school like I just couldn't, like, I guess I could if I really like forced myself to, but it was, and it's never like the course material was too hard, but like if I didn't feel like doing something, I just like couldn't bring myself to do it. Like, I don't know, that sounds so spoiled probably, like to you know, people who aren't privileged enough to have an education, but yeah, I would just like be like, no, I don't want to do my homework, I want to like think about this thing, and I literally like can't like force myself to think about something if I don't want to. And so that's why I feel like, you know, in many ways the school system is not set up for every type of person, and it can make people think that they have like like learning disabilities or something like that. I never like was that bad, like I could get good grades and stuff, but I don't know, I just seem to struggle more than like my J friends, I guess.
And I agree with that. For me it wasn't just that I had to be interested in the subject, but I would get upset if I felt like teachers or textbooks didn't even care to make it interesting. I'd be like, well, that's your fault that I'm not interested. Because I mean, FE, I think, tries a lot to connect with its audience and make sense to it And if I'm reading a dry textbook, it's like, I know this information could have been interesting. It's their bad for not getting my attention. It's sort of like how I would feel.
Oh, okay. You know, I kind of blame myself for being stupid, but that's
I don't. But also, I'm a Leo, so. Which,
yeah, like.
For those who have not made the connection, it's interesting because I am a Leo with a Cancer rising, and Christine is a Cancer with a Leo rising. So this isn't just an ENFJ, ENFP interaction. You can also try and see if you are, to the trained eye, to the astrologer eye, the differences based on how we act. So anyway.
Oh my God. Yeah. I feel like that's really true. I don't know. I think like, yeah, it is kind of the teacher's responsibility to, because I mean, it's one thing to learn something by extracting data or like information from a source. But if you're a teacher and you're introducing a subject or you're progressing someone into the next step of like becoming an expert on the subject, then, you know, you have a responsibility to make it relatable and to make it, to give them something that like the internet or a textbook can't provide.
Yeah. And I also think FE can connect it back to why it actually matters to you. And a lot of teachers that were FE users, in my opinion, would explain to you why this matters and not just like give you facts and be like, you have to learn these or else you fail the class, which is like fine. But I definitely connected better when like I knew that there was a reason for what I was doing in school and stuff.
Yeah. I think a lot of people complain about that actually, because they're always like, oh, you know, when am I going to use this in real life? Or like, why is this important? You know, we kind of just learn it. And so, yeah, I think it is an FE responsibility to be like, oh, you know, this has a social impact or this, you know, got something going on. I had one teacher like a couple years ago who taught a critical thinking and writing class. And it sounds pretty dry, you know, but the way he did it, and I think he was an ENFJ, so shout out to you. But yeah, he made the class like so cool. Like every material we read, well, the theme of the class was like horror movies, and so yeah, we just read horror literature, scary movies, shows, stuff like that. And he like told us why scary movies are not just like what is it, like pop culture trash. They actually have like societal implications that show what like people are fearing at that time.
Oh, and wow, I would be interested in that because I actually have asked myself multiple times, what is the purpose of a scary movie? Like
yeah like, why do I want to put myself through pain?
Yeah, really. Yeah
But no, it does, like he was totally right, and he showed us like really weird stuff, but at the time I was like, oh God, I don't want to watch this. But coming out from it, I was like, whoa, that makes sense. And like people who are filmmakers and like writers and stuff like that, you know, they have a social responsibility, and I feel like that's why a lot of them are like NFs or like NFJs especially, because they're trying to kind of warn society about a message, I think, and like something that's going to happen or something that like will happen if we aren't aware. So like yeah, I don't know, sorry, that was kind of like on a tangent, but I feel like it's kind of related.
Yeah, so as far as this astrology and Myers-Briggs thing goes, so we have a group to sort of explore the interconnections. And Christine actually shared some things on there about connections you think. Do you want to just sort of share briefly for anyone that might be wondering, do you think, and this probably is not going to be a brief question, but do you think that astrology and cognitive functions have any interconnections at all?
Yes, they absolutely do. 200%. And Carl Jung knows this.
Carl Jung was a woo-woo bitch.
Yeah, he was.
Don't forget that.
Oh my God, yeah. Like yeah, absolutely. And I think like what is it? Yeah, MBTI, like I said before, was kind of like a training ground to knowing astrology, because like I think astrology would have been too overwhelming if I had learned it at first. But now I'm like, oh, and it's connected to tarot too, if you guys do that.
Yeah. So
but yeah.
The cards here.
Yeah, so like the four, what would we call it? Like elements?
Yeah. Elements.
Fire.
Or the suits in tarot. Or are they called suits? Are they called suits?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so. I'm not as much into tarot. I think Crystal's more into
that.
that.
Not either.
Yeah. Actually, I think they're elements. I think suits is the
Well, I know that they're elements for astrology, but so do you want to go into the general connections? I think I know what you're about to say.
Okay, yeah. So I guess in kind of a simplified way, fire signs in astrology are intuition. Earth signs are sensing, thinking. Oh wait, no, sorry. Air signs are thinking, and water signs are feeling. And so, yeah, this is why I think, any combination of elements, planets, or houses in a person can lead to a certain type, but the way that person's type is expressed will be really different. And so that's why you get like INFPs who are interested in like completely different things, or like ENFPs who are different. Like, me and Crystal, I guess we share a lot of similarities, but like she's a Capricorn sun, which is my opposite, and she's like a Scorpio rising, so she has like a very different way, I think, of like seeing the world sometimes, but we can always like understand each other when we talk. So and
I guess I want to say too, to me, I know that functions and Myers-Briggs types relate and interact with astrology. But to me, this is still a question that I'm exploring my full thoughts on, if that makes sense. I agree very much with Christine about these basic correlations. I'm actually looking through my tarot deck now to show you the demonstration of what those also would be connected with thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. But for me, I want to know if you agree with this, Christine, but for people that are asking if there's a connection in the sense of like, do you think that Leos are more likely to be feelers? Or do you think that Capricorns are more likely to be sensors? I would say no.
Yeah.
So if you're asking if there's a connection, if like certain types are clustered around certain sun signs, I would probably say no at this point. But it doesn't mean that it has no role in how it interacts. So what are your thoughts on that? Or
yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. I think like so I think your rising sign, like if anything, would be the closest thing to maybe like your top two functions, or just like the I guess like type descriptions. I know they're not always super accurate, and then when you get more into astrology, you realize why nobody fits into a certain mold. But yeah, the closest thing would be the rising sign. But yeah, I think like when it comes to sun sign, moon sign, that's all like really personal stuff. And it will play out in your functions, I think. Like for example, like let's say there's like an INTP who is a Scorpio, and Scorpio is like a water sign, so you're thinking, oh, like INTPs are not like sensitive or whatever, they don't think about feeling, but it's like to them they could express that through their inferior function a lot. And it might be like I
almost view them as different layers. Do you view them as different layers?
Yeah, definitely. And it'll just kind of like I think with astrology, it's more about like your motivations for doing things. And so yeah.
So like, actually something that I've said on this channel before, and I actually was talking to you about yesterday, but your Myers-Briggs type or your socionics type, it describes your mind because it's describing your cognition. And astrology is much more than your mind. It is like your entire soul and like everything about you. And so if you ever think that Myers-Briggs is limiting, you might be interested in astrology, because it is not very limiting, I would say.
Yeah.
But I think you're onto something as far as like maybe it's describing your motives more. Because I think an INTP who is a Scorpio, as an example, is not going to necessarily be more emotional than other INTPs just because Scorpio is a water sign. But the way that they express emotions will be very like different. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that.
I also wanted to show just these really quick. The Ace of Wands in tarot is correlated with fire and also intuition. Cups is correlated with water and feeling. Sorry. And then Pentacles is correlated with earth and sensing. And swords are correlated with thinking and air. So these are correlations. It's not exact. It's not perfect. So
yeah. And so I think tarot is a really good way to get in touch with like those feeling signatures, because since each one represents like a different part, you will kind of understand like how certain things play a role in your life, even if it's not like your entire life. Because I think like when it comes to astrology and MBTI, you can't like just describe a person by saying anything. Like you can't, like, they're just them and that's what you experience, you know? Like you can't say like, oh yeah, like I'm an ENFP, like Cancer, and then my Enneagram type. It's like, yeah, they'll tell some things about me, but it's like the point of astrology is to show you that like this person is all of this and more that we can't see. And so
also Christine is an Enneagram 7 for anyone curious.
Yeah.
So if you guys watch my Synchronic Saturdays episodes with Crystal, another ENFP, Crystal's a type 4, so there's some differences there. Anyway, sorry, were you saying something?
Oh no, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, and so I think like since we can't like define a person by like any few words or like just anything like that, you know, the closest we can get is to describe kind of like what things are taking the spotlight in our life. And so I think that's what comes to like the sun sign, your rising sign, and your MBTI type. And so like, for example, like me and Crystal, my sun sign will describe like, I guess, my motivations in this life. So as a Cancer, you know, I am kind of looking, I can say that, you know, I'm a Leo rising and I act a certain way. But when it comes to my core, you know, I do want emotional security and I want to have things to look back on. And I feel like Cancer as a sign is very SI. And so like when I first read it, I was like, oh, I don't relate to that at all. Like I was like, I don't care about home, I don't care about this or that. But the more I like dig into myself, like the more I realize it's true. And that's kind of my guiding light for this life.
Okay, so Christine, for those that are listening that maybe are uninterested or skeptical of astrology or don't know much about it, is there any way you can sort of describe an overview?
Okay, so if you're kind of skeptical about astrology, I totally understand. Been there. But if you believe in MBTI, I mean, that's kind of a distillation of astrology. And your entire chart, like when you see your birth chart, I don't know if you guys have looked at it, but if you have, basically what that all comes down to is your MBTI type. And like we described earlier, the motivations will vary depending on the signs, aspects, houses in your chart. But you can kind of see how all of the components in your birth chart will create you. and your MBTI type. And so I would say that if that's too much right now, just focus on learning the signs, like Megan said. Start with your sun sign and try to accept how that could be a part of you. If you're already skeptical, then like it might be a little hard, but just try to think about it. Just say like, when have I acted like this, or when have I wanted this or thought this way? And so I guess what I can do is kind of like go through the signs and just say what the archetypes encompass and maybe what cognitive functions they relate to.
Yes, I would love to hear that. That'd be awesome.
Okay, cool. So let's start with Aries. This is Megan's moon sign.
Yay.
First sign of the zodiac. And so Aries is associated with the ram and the planet Mars. So Aries is kind of about taking initiative, going after what you want, and like kind of just seeing the world and disrupting it. Like your force is what Aries is. It's what Mars is. Everything's fine until Mars comes in, and then bam, just fucks everything up.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way necessarily. It's kind of just like, your drive, your energy, that's a big one. And so another thing I associate with fire and the wands and, intuition is like, it's just where your energy, your like, joie de vivre comes from. That's what I think fire is. And so
I'm curious what functions you associate with it, because I think I have some in mind.
Definitely SE.
Okay, I was about to say, so it's very SE, and then maybe even FI.
I think it is too. Yeah. I definitely associate it with FI is kind of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do what I want. I don't care what other people say. I want it. I'm gonna go for it. So maybe like FI.
Or go ahead.
Oh, FITE.
Yeah, because I was gonna say the thing about Aries is that it's the baby of the zodiac, and that's another association is of the baby. And the first thing that a baby learns about itself is me. It learns that before objects, before other people. And so if you have Aries anywhere in your chart, that is where that's you, that to your core, like doing what you want.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so also so if you're an Aries sun sign, I would say a big part of your drive, and usually people don't integrate into their sun signs until later in life. You kind of have to discover who you are, and you have to create who you are. So if you're an Aries sun sign, you might expect that there is a little voice inside of you telling you to kind of just like go for it and kind of do what you want, not really care about what other people think. And if you're in resistance to that, I guess you just gotta learn through your own experiences, but you'll definitely know this like by the time you're 30. Yeah.
Once your Saturn return hits you.
Oh. Yeah, and my Saturn's in Aries, so that goes. Yeah, but okay, so let's move on to the next one. Second sign of the zodiac is Taurus. This is an earth sign. It is represented by the bull. By the way, these are the Western archetypes. So I know in Vedic astrology, some of these signs might be different. So I am a little bit culturally biased, and we can talk about them another time. But since we're just introducing it, most of you are probably familiar with the Western zodiac signs.
Yes.
So yeah, just a little disclaimer, but anyways.
Yeah, Christine knows about both. Classic ENFP, you need to dabble in both systems to decide which, anyway.
Oh my God, yeah. So, Taurus is the bull, and it's a lot, and it's related to the second house too. So a lot of it is about possessions. If Aries is the baby, kind of just waking up, knowing all it knows is who I am, what I need. Taurus is like seeing the world around you and what you can gain in order to get what you need.
Oh, one more thing is, so along with these archetypes, which I'm so glad that you are helping me with this, because I know all of these, but I can't think of them. I can't like rattle them off, which bad SI, whatever. But something else, a metaphor that I like to think about in going through these is that Aries it starts in the middle of March to the middle of April, and Aries is associated with springtime. And if you think about farming, if you think about the crops and what state they're in at that time, that is also correlated with them. So Aries is like planting seeds, and Taurus is like, I don't know, harvesting, or no.
Yeah.
Harvesting is sort of like a Leo thing. Leo, we'll get there, but Leo is like when the crops are ready to eat, and Aries is like planting the seeds. But like, there's this sort of metaphor going all the way through that as well. But
yeah. And Taurus, I mean, I strongly actually associate Taurus with a farmer, because a big like archetype, I guess, of it would be that Taurus is slow and steady. You know, they don't work too fast, they don't try to rush things, they just do the labor and watch the fruits of their labor grow. So like you said, planting the seeds in Aries season, you know, I feel like Taurus season, they will gather water the plants, maintain what they have, gather the supplies they need, see what resources basically they need to create what they want. And Taurus is also the builder, so it's kind of just like you're entering a video game and you're just interacting with the shit around you. Like actually no, I would say Aries is interacting with the shit around you, just seeing like what I can punch, what I can like you know, just like throttle, I don't know, like just anything you want to do. But then afterwards you're like, oh, what can actually help me? So that's what Taurus is. You're gathering the resources. So like if you're playing, I don't know, Skyrim or something, you're like, oh, this bucket will help me, and this water will I can make flour eventually if I get like the wheat, and like, you know, it's just that, like, it's stepping into the world, I would say. And so if you're a Taurus sun sign, I would associate this with SI.
Very SI.
Yeah.
I think maybe even TE.
Yeah, maybe TE too. I think another thing about Taurus is like
usefulness. That's the thing I think with TE is using the resources to its fullest in a sense, as opposed to just thinking about it all day long with TI. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. It's like the tangible goods, and like what is what we can use, what we can put to work, basically. I would associate that with Taurus. And then on the other hand of Taurus, you kind of get the stereotype of them being like lazy or very indulgent in like sensory pleasures. So Taurus is just like all about the senses. And I think it could be a little bit with SE too, because like they kind of just like to, you know, taste good foods and, you know, wear soft clothes, enjoy nice music. It's like the simple pleasures of life. And so I think that very much is just like a sensing archetype. And if you're a Taurus sun sign, you know, you might build something, you might just really enjoy like the nice pleasures in life, not think too hard about things all the time.
Even if you are an intuitive in the Myers-Briggs and you're a Taurus, this energy can sort of enhance wherever your sensing is in your sign or in your functions.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think Taurus is a very essential sign. Like people get on them for being like boring, but I'm like, dude, it's such a stabilizing energy. Like literally this world would be a total shit show if we didn't have Taurus. And it's like, I mean, it's the opposite sign of Scorpio, and like Scorpio has its own, you know, things, but Taurus is kind of like taking a break from just the chaotic world, the dramatic world. That's what I'd say about it.
So Gemini,
everyone's favorite sign.
It really is one of my faves. I think it gets too much flack. Oh
my god, totally. I love Gemini so much. Like I think they're great. I think so Gemini is the archetype of the twins. They are ruled by the planet Mercury, which is a very fast-moving planet. So if you know any Geminis, they're quick people, they're hyper people. I have Mercury in Gemini, so, and it's conjunct my sun. So basically that means I relate a lot to just thinking the way Gemini does, communicating, stuff like that. So yeah, Gemini is all about communication. It's all about gathering information, and kind of using the people around you. So I think, like, to connect it back to what we were saying about like Taurus and Aries, it's like once you realize like your environment, then you can kind of interact with the people around you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like it rules like the mouth and this area. Oh, and also like I think the collarbones and the arms, because you kind of like talk with your hands. So
yeah, I know I do.
yeah, and so yeah, I think Gemini is all about communication. It's about intelligence, using concepts, vocabulary, things that you know, just to like transmute energy. I would say like, yeah, it's kind of a conceptual function. So this is it's an air sign, and I think yeah, it relates to the thinking function. So
yeah,
yeah.
I personally see it as very TI compared to any other function, but I feel like it could be either NE or SE, honestly, like because, and we'll get into this, but Gemini and Sagittarius are opposites. And the way I view those is Gemini seeing the truth by seeing what is, and Sagittarius seeing the truth by seeing what's not and exploring what's not. And so Sagittarius reminds me a lot of NE, which almost makes me wonder if Gemini would be more SE, but I don't know because I also see it as kind of NE as well. So I don't really know. But a lot of Geminis, the reason why it reminds me of TI is that they aren't afraid to say the truth as it is, even if it's unpopular, and they aren't afraid to stand in their truth. I'm a Mars in Gemini, and I feel like that sort of enhances the way I use my TI. So
yeah, I totally agree with that. So I think
and totally, Gemini, if you ever disagree, like that's totally because I'm not even super firm on these opinions so far. I'm like still exploring this subject. So what are yours?
Yeah. I think like, so I think with the Gemini Sagittarius axis, this is like the curiosity axis. And so I think like Geminis, if you know them, they're kind of just like reading all the time. They really like intellectual information, conceptual information. They like to talk a lot. They like to listen a lot. And then Sagittarius is more about like getting rid of the fluff and like just following your own truth, like your intuition. And yeah, it's like it's more of a singular truth, I think, whereas Gemini realizes there's many truths and it's more of like a relative truth. So yeah, it can be more related to TI, maybe any, because it's kind of like your environment. Yeah.
And just so you guys know, it would be impossible for any of these to be 100% with the functions because there's 12 signs and there's only 8 functions. So it's not a equal like fit. It's just sort of, anyway. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse with that one, but
no. I feel like there's gonna be at least one person who's gonna be like, "Well, I'm a Gemini and I don't use TI."
Yeah, I just know that if I was listening and I didn't know as much about these topics, I would be trying to really make these firm connections, and I don't think they are firm connections. I think they're loose connections.
Definitely not. Yeah. So like take it with a grain of salt. Try to see like. Try to just get the gist, I think, of like what this thing means to you or how you've seen it like, in your life, and then question it later. Like if you're interested in it, you'll look into it. But and so I think just going with what you said about Gemini being like TI, is that the planet Mercury also rules Virgo, and those are both very like mental energies. So with Gemini, the reason we're able to communicate is because we can categorize things and we can separate concepts, and like really get down to the details of what something means. So I think to have like a strong Gemini energy in your chart will involve you like wanting to separate concepts, wanting to know things and like really know them, and share that information with people so that it makes more sense to you, and just so that you know. And I feel like that's what TI is all about, just to have that knowledge and to like appreciate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So Cancer.
Yeah.
Not that you know anything about that.
No. So so Cancer is the crab. It's the snippy crab, and it's ruled by the moon. So Cancer is a water sign, and it's emotional. And this is like a really interesting sign, I think, because it's mine. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, not only is Cancer my rising, but it's also my Mercury, and technically in Vedic astrology I would be a Cancer sun, but that's too confusing now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Cancer is all about kind of where you came from, like where your family was from, the experiences you know and understand, and your immediate emotional responses to things. So I feel like since the crab is at the shore of the ocean, you know, since all the water signs, they have an animal to kind of represent that sign. So the crab's like right at the shore, it's like at the surface. And when the tides come in, they're just feeling it like hit them, and they're like, oh no, like don't do that, like, you know, or they like it. Like it's like you're always so aware of like your emotional responses to things, and like very quickly. So you might know your emotions very well, you might know yourself very well. And it's also the nurturer of the zodiac. So Cancers, like, they want to protect you because they know how sensitive your emotions can be. They know how certain situations can affect you. And so that's why mothers, you know, they want to give their children what they need. They want to make sure that they're protected. And so if you know a Cancer rising, or like a Cancer, or just anyone with prominent Cancer energy in their chart, they can be either a person who is very clad, and they don't want to share anything because like they're just afraid of being hurt, or they're a person, and I feel like that's the FI form of it. I would say
that's interesting.
Yeah. And so I would say the introverted form is like, oh, I'm protecting my own emotions and I'm mothering myself. So you'll see a lot of Cancer moons who kind of feel that way, like they really need to protect themselves. But if you're a Cancer rising, or if you're like an FE user, you might use that energy to nurture and protect other people, and like make sure that they're satisfied.
Yeah, I definitely think if you had to pick, Cancer is a little bit more FE than FI, but I do think that it in a way is correlated with both, depending on how you're using the Cancer energy. And then weirdly enough, I feel like it is more SI or NI than SE and NE. Like it seems almost like introverted perceiving in a way. So I feel like it's probably common in FJs, but even like with you, Christine, I think that you use your demonstrative FE perhaps more because you are a Cancer sun.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like in that regard, the way I use like FE would be to recognize that other people are feeling things all the time, and you know, I don't want to disturb them. I don't want to like hurt them. So I'll try to be very polite to people like I don't know, and I'll just like especially like if I'm in a situation I'm not like familiar with, then I'll be like kind of quiet, just try to read the room, like read the vibe and see where everyone's at. So I feel like that's definitely an FE thing. Like I definitely like, I just like don't want to hurt people because I like, you know how shitty it feels to be hurt, and I feel like I would learn through my FI how to use FE towards other people. And so I think another thing is like Cancers get a reputation for being moody and like kind of lashing out. Like the one day they'll be really nice, the other day like they'll completely lash out and have like a Lindsay Lohan meltdown.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and so it's like, it's just because like we're expressing like our raw like emotional energy, and so I feel like that's an FE too. So even though I have FI, it's like I always like I can't hide how I feel. Like I have to. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna come out some way or another, and
yeah.
like they don't like that in the workplace.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's why there's Capricorns for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just very much about security, emotional security, emotional like, you know, protection. That's why a lot of Cancers like cuddly things, like you know, cute animals and very innocent, pure things. I think of it also as kind of like a baby sign. So
if you have a Cancer that loves you, they will do anything for you. Because like it's like they will protect anyone that tries to hurt you, and they will put that shell on. So don't be thinking that they're just super soft that you can step on them, because they also have a shell. So yeah. But anyway, anything else on Cancer? Or
no, I think let's move on to the next best sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Leo is ruled by the sun, and the animal is the lion. So the lion is the king of the jungle, and like the lion expects everyone to respect them, and like I've noticed like Leos don't usually talk that much. Like they might want to entertain, or they might want to like be a leader or protect people, kind of in a similar way that Cancers do, but I don't feel like they're like the same way as chatty Geminis. And
well, I think the one thing about Leos is that we can stay in our own lane very easily. Like eyes on the prize, like not in the way that a Capricorn would, to try and like, I don't know, get something prestigious like for society's sake. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, so the way that I think of Leos, I think of someone, well, one, I think that it's correlated with NI compared to other functions. That's the thing that sticks out to me the most. Leos are like, I'm here for a purpose, and I need to be the best version of myself I could be, and this is who I am. And I think that Leos are pretty misunderstood, honestly. But we have almost like this path, or this like version of who we are that we want to become, and that's like a very intense thing for us.
Oh my god, yeah, I relate to that so much. Sorry, that's why I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Go ahead.
You hit the nail on the head. Like, honestly, okay, we get it. Like, okay, you think Leos want attention. You think, like, we're flashy, like, pieces of shit. You think we're shallow. Like, you know, I don't care. Like, that's, okay, we get it.
It's like, whatever, just get out of our way is the thing. Also, but, like, don't fuck with a lion unless you want it to bite you. Like, we're an animal. Like, and this is where I think the archetypes are interesting, is it's like, why would you mess with a lion? Like, what is wrong with you? Just leave us alone.
And so, like, oh my god, I totally relate to, like, Leo's also a fixed sign, and modalities are kind of like something else we'll understand, but basically a fixed sign is usually like you got your eyes on the prize and nothing's changing that, like, and so the fixed signs are Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus. So I feel like basically what Megan said is just like, I'm a Leo rising, so all my life has kind of just been like I just gotta follow my heart. Like, I can't do anything else, you know. Like, I can maybe for a while, but you know, I can't, you know, I gotta follow my guiding light. I gotta see what I could be. And I feel like that's an NI thing. I feel like that's an FI thing. And it's definitely an inner child thing. And so I think, like, when you're not bogged down by like the rules of society or the rules of I don't know, just whatever, like your family, you have a light inside of you, and everyone has a sun sign. Like, that's basically what it is. Even if you have a different energy in your sun sign, like,
and Leo's ruled by the sun. I don't know if we've said that yet.
So yeah, it's going to be all about like just, you know, what you are, where you want to feel special, and yeah, but it's just
another thing I just thought of actually is that I feel like a lot of Leo descriptions make it sound very SE, and it is SE, but I think people miss the NI of it sometimes, and that's why people talk about Leos as being really showy and in your face and all of that. But I think what really defines a Leo is them wanting to be the most authentic version of themselves as possible and very aligned with their path. They aren't just showy just to be showy the way other signs might be.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I think like you said, a lot of the people see the SE of it, and the SE is strong because the NI is strong. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I don't know. I was
So,
trying to think of another sign that would be more SE than that, but
I think in a different way, I would say Capricorn's SE, but we'll get to that. Like,
yeah.
I think there's different expressions of SE for sure. That's why like no one can really pinpoint it. And you made a video about this where like people think it's like your five senses, and it's like, yeah, that's true, but it's also like competition, it's drive, it's climbing to the top, it's getting what you want.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like I think of it as like a warrior when I think of SE. And
I guess Aries I would even say is more SE than Leo, but
yeah,
anyway.
definitely. Yeah, and I think people maybe also associate Leo with
Oh no, you paused. Oh wait, you just paused. But wait, oh, you paused again.
Hello?
Okay. Oh, hi, I can hear you. Wait, what did you associate? What do people associate Leo with? That part cut out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think people also associate Leo with FE because of like I think all of theater is pretty Leo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like I would say it's not just your guiding light, but it's also how you express that, and you really want to get it out into the world. That's why it's a fire sign. It's an extroverted sign. Oh, another thing. Air and fire signs are extroverted. Water and earth signs are introverted.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And like I mean, again, that's not like a blanket statement, but
Yeah.
just when we're looking at like the components of like astrology, that's kind of a good thing to go by. So a fire sign, like a Leo sign, will they'll want to not only find their light, but like get it out to the world and
influence people.
Yeah, and influence people. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's about it. For Leo.
It's the best sign, so that's all you need to know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Virgo.
Ooh, I've had a love-hate relationship with the sign Virgo, but I'm just gonna try to talk about it unbiased. So Virgo is co-ruled by Mercury. And some people say that it's also ruled by the asteroid Chiron in astrology. And so if you don't know what Chiron is, it's the wounded healer, and it's a place where you might have been hurt in your life, and you try to help other people out, and you try to like kind of compensate for it. And so with Virgo, it's an earth sign, so it's all about what is it? Sorry, I just blanked. Virgo is all about analyzing, taking things apart, and kind of like putting in the hard work to get the results that you want. And so a lot of people call Virgos perfectionists, or like service workers and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, you know, these things are true, but I think the core of what Virgo is like they really just want to do a good job, and they kind of are like reticent about it. Like they don't want to be like showy. They just are behind the scenes doing what they do. And
this isn't Myers-Briggs, but something that I do think is connected with Virgo, if any of you has ever taken the love languages quiz. Do you know your love languages, Christine?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Virgo is correlated with acts of service, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely see that. Yeah, and I think it's really like the most humble sign. It's It's what keeps society running. It's also, since it's ruled by Mercury, analyzing, compartmentalizing, and organizing things. So not every Virgo is like super organized, but you'll notice like they're always analyzing something in their mind. So even if you're like, I think what people see it as is like an SJ type, where like they're just kind of doing their duty and like being really scrupulous about like little details and stuff. But this can be in like an intuitive sense too, where you're like, if you're writing a book, let's say, and you really just want to choose the right word to say, and you want to make sure everything's structured properly, everything's organized, everything makes sense to people. I think that is an earth energy, even though it's like conceptual, it's still, you're still materializing something. Yeah.
Also, it's mutable. And so I do see Virgo as correlated with SI and maybe even TI.
Yeah.
Maybe even FE. It's still mutable, and so I also sort of see Virgo as someone that can like put out fires as needed and like always make sure things are safe and be adaptable in a sense. They aren't going to be super thrown off guard if something went wrong, because they probably already thought about that could have gone wrong, I would think. But yeah, and I think part of the reason why I can sort of see it as correlated with TI is that they can seem very nitpicky and harsh to some people. My Venus is in Virgo, and so I sort of resonate with this energy. I don't know. Like, I think that they sometimes say the hard truths that nobody wants to say, similar to Gemini.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like on that topic, Virgo is also like, since it's a mutable sign, and it's opposite to Pisces. Pisces is known for healing, but Virgo is also healing because the thing about like when Virgos criticize you, they're not like trying to make you feel bad. They just want you to pick up your feet and like get back on with life, So they're trying to give you the tools so that you can just get better. You can feel better. A lot of Virgo energy, well, it's the 6th house, so a lot of it is correlated with like health, doctors, nutrition, like medicine and stuff like that. And so it's kind of like seeing the tangible things that are causing you pain and how to relinquish that. But like, I mean, they can seem critical, they can seem harsh, but they do want the best for you, I think, if you have a Virgo as your friend.
Yeah, and for me, my Virgo Venus shows up as like classically sort of wanting to fix people or wanting to point out their problems so that they can change it. You know what? Virgo sort of reminds me of being a type 1 in the Enneagram.
Yeah,
in the sense.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So Virgo is so type 1.
Yeah. So, okay. So moving on to Libra.
Yeah, so Libra, okay. So Libra is an air sign. It's ruled by the planet Venus, and its archetype is the scales. So this is actually really, I think this is also a misunderstood sign because people think like Libras are basic bitches and they're all like obsessed with romance and like reality TV shows and stuff, but I think that's like one projection of Libra, but the main thing that I recognize Libra as is the law. And so once you're interacting with a person, so Libra is one-on-one relationships. If you're interacting with a person, whether it's a business partner, a husband or wife, or like just a close friend, you're kind of comparing your life and what you've experienced to theirs, and you're seeing how the scales balance. So I think that's what the law is. It's seeing where everyone deserves justice in their life and how to make agreements on that based in the real world. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like they obviously like balance, and also the temperance card in tarot sort of reminds me of it. It also sort of reminds me of NE because it's I don't know, wanting to see both sides. Very,
Hmm.
very like devil's advocate in a way.
I kind of see Libra as like TE and FE, like the extroverted judging functions, because
I can see that too.
yeah. So I think like it's just like an agreement in the world basically, or like a balance. I guess like an internal balance could be any function. Like it could be like, I don't know, like FI or SI, but let's just like say if we're talking about Libra like in the real world and like how yeah, like how it is kind of in our society, it's all about making agreements. Like FE is all about agreeing. TE is like a method that works for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that. I don't think I know as much about Libra energy, so I trust you there. But that makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, like the way a lot of people see is like Libra is also associated with love. And it's like union. So that's why like the seventh house like is associated with marriage and stuff. It's just like bringing two people together and seeing like how two people can work together, because like even
I'm
though I've
very
had all these
FE.
like even though I've had all these experiences, like maybe opinions that I've gathered like in an FI or a TI way, I will have at some point to deal with someone else. And I think that's when the extroverted judging comes in, whatever one you have like in your function stack. And that's just kind of the essence of how it works. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, FE and TE, and it also sort of represents, so not only does all of the signs sort of show as a metaphor of the crops and how that goes, but it
Yeah.
also can sort of be the evolution of a human. And this would sort of be like marriage in a sense of like partnership. Like if a person goes from a baby to then like when they're a Leo, maybe they know who they are. And then maybe Virgo is like, okay, now I have a job. Now I'm doing my bills, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Libra's like merging with another person. Would you say merging? Or I don't know if merging is the right word, but it's like I think FE and TE makes sense because it's sort of like taking into consideration another person's viewpoint as just as important as yours in a sense.
Yeah,
That balance.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And I think like so I have Mars in Libra, and
Mm-hmm.
I think like whenever there's like conflict, so
Mm-hmm.
Libras are also like really good at handling conflict. And I can see like both sides. Um
Mm-hmm.
I won't always like necessarily uh what is it, like choose a side or something. So they also get like flack for that, like being
Mm-hmm.
kind of wishy-washy and stuff. But to a degree you do have to understand that like both people are right in some way, like they think they're right. And you have to consider what the other person needs. And so I feel like that's a very FE thing, to just be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just want to consider other people. And like, I don't know, not I think problems is when we get to like the Scorpio house. But right now, like Libra, this is like what works between two people. This is when things are good, things are balanced, harmonious. Maybe I don't know if I'd say merging, but it's like we're combining right now, and we're seeing how two people can be more powerful than just one person.
Yeah, I love that. So, Scorpio.
Yeah, okay. So this sign is like, I feel like Scorpios are like the INFJs of astrology. Like everyone wants to talk about them, and
Yeah.
there's just like a lot going on. Yeah, so yeah, Scorpio is definitely like one of the most perplexing signs of the zodiac. It's ruled by the planet Pluto, and in ancient astrology it was ruled by Mars.
Yeah.
So a
And I
lot of
personally think it's very Pluto and that we just did not even know Pluto existed yet at the time, which is
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. I do kind of see like a Martian influence,
Mm-hmm.
since Scorpio is like a fixed sign, and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, when they really want something, then they'll go for it. But yeah, I think its main ruler would be Pluto, and so like, yeah, Scorpio. is, I mean, the animal is a scorpion, obviously.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so Scorpio is kind of like the water sign that went too deep into the water, and they really go deep into their psychology. I would say this is the sign of the psychologist. This is the sign of finding out and digging out like what's wrong with you and with other people,
Mhm.
and not being afraid of that, and like really like wanting to know like the hidden truth of things, like the things are beneath the surface. So in a way I think it's kind of it's kind of
I
FI.
see that.
Yeah.
I also think that if you're looking at the progression, like it's the opposite of Taurus, and Taurus is all about comfort and stability and all that. But since Scorpio comes down later in zodiac, it's sort of like you're comfortable enough that you are able to get uncomfortable a little bit and like
Yeah.
really lean into the discomfort that is like living. And so in that way, I think honestly, yeah, very NI and FI. And also introverted
Yeah, I
in a
think
way.
that's a really good point,
Mhm.
with how you described like the progression, because
Mhm.
yeah, I think Scorpios, and there's always like more to unfold about a Scorpio, so I feel like
Yeah.
you can think that you know everything about them, but you really don't. And a lot of the things they just don't want to share with people because it's a lot, like, and it makes other people
They
uncomfortable
see a
because
lot
yeah, they
as
see a lot.
well. Mhm.
Yeah, and so they'll like often be observing things. I think it can also be like, in a sense, it could be FE because the Scorpio, like once you know you get into like your own psychology, after the union that Libra entails, there will be a point in your union where crisis comes along, and you're gonna have to dig into your own psychology. You're gonna have to
Mhm.
dig into theirs. You're gonna have to find out like what's going on in their lives, and so you really need to like. It's kind of like FE through the knowledge of FI. Like you,
Mm.
once you dig deep enough, then you can figure out what's wrong with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I would say, fight for a cause in a way. Would you
Yeah.
agree?
I think I associate that more with Aquarius, but
Yeah.
yeah, I guess they do fight for a cause, because like I feel like one in a similar way to Cancer, like once Scorpios are loyal to you, like when they're your friend, like they'll like tear shit down for you. Like they won't just like
Yeah.
try to protect you, but they'll really like find like go to the next step. And I think that's what people like don't like Scorpio sometimes, because like they'll really push you because they want what's better for you. And that's why people don't like Pluto. Because when
Yeah.
Pluto hits your chart, it's like, you know, things
Mhm.
have to tear down. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to like let go of things in your life, because you know if you stay the same all the time, then you know you're never going to be satisfied. You're
Yeah.
never going to
The
improve
thing
in your life.
the thing that seems NI to me about it is that they're always looking at the underlying root of things. They
Yeah,
do not look at the surface at all. They need to know the why behind things. But then also the thing that seems FI is that they don't share their emotions super openly right off the bat, and they're can be kind of protective. And I also think that they're not afraid of darkness. They understand that
yeah,
they can transform their emotions by feeling them, and they don't need to talk about it in order to process them. But I also think
yeah.
that it could be expressed through TI as well, as someone that sees the truths of a system or a society, and like really pushing into that as well. I think it
Yeah.
does feel more FI to me, but I I know a couple TPs that are Scorpios that use it differently. you know?
I agree with that. And I think like the TI projection of Scorpio will be more along the lines of understanding complex systems. Um,
I have
and
an ESTP friend actually that's a Scorpio, and he is very obsessed with politics and is always the
Mhm.
person
Oh my
to
God.
remind you, hey guys, just so you know, things are still bad. like like for me, I mean, I have my North Node in Scorpio, and I have Pluto and Jupiter in Scorpio. And so Scorpio is a big theme for me in this life. But like it can be hard for some people to pay attention to the news these days, because it's like very overwhelming. But that's how I see the Scorpio projected in my ESTP friend, is that she's still on top of the news. She's still sharing it, and she's still like, hey guys, you need to care about this. Hello.
Yeah.
Like in a more SE and TI way.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I think, okay, actually, I kind of see where you're going with like the fighting for a cause thing, because a lot of politicians actually have prominent Scorpio 8th house energy in their charts.
Yeah.
Because
I also have an ENTJ uncle who's a Scorpio and a lawyer and very into politics.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy. Yeah, it's like, and I think another part of it is, I think it's very NISE actually, because one part of it is getting down to the root of things, showing people what's actually going on, even if they don't want to hear it. And I've noticed that a lot with NI users is like, they really don't say something unless they feel like it has to be said, because it's actually going on. And I think inevitably you gain power from that in an SE way, because you know more than other people. Like I don't know what else to say. I think you're just like powerful ass people, and like, you know,
that is how that is how NI and SE are sort of connected, is that if you know and understand what's going on, then you're able to mold and shape reality with SE more.
That's really true. And so Scorpio energy in the chart is like very powerful, especially if it's combined with Aries, I think, because then you'll like really take action, unless you have like some hard aspects, but you know, that's
something that I think is interesting is that Hillary Clinton has a huge Leo and Scorpio square.
Dude,
I think made her very unlikable to have both of those. But I felt like I understood because I have a Leo Scorpio square. But
I was gonna mention her because she's like a poster child person for
Scorpio.
It's just like a Scorpio politician that nobody liked.
It's
like and it's like, I feel like a lot of them are politicians, because being a politician, you do have to transform things. Like you have to be okay with kind of getting down and dirty in order to make things better. And like, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people have the fortitude for that. I think people who have Scorpio in their charts will make great careers in doing things that other people don't want to do. Not as in like, you know, I don't know, like.
Yeah, and Crystal, you guys that know Crystal, she's a Scorpio rising, and she did investigative journalism in college. She still does journalism, but she was very good at she also sort of has dreamed of being a detective in a lot of times. And when I first met her, and when she first meets certain friends, or when she goes on dates, it's really funny. She's like interrogating you in a weird way. I don't know if you sensed that when you met her, like at first. Like, I feel like Scorpio risings can sort of like seem like they're trying to size you up or figure you out very intensely.
And I feel like Crystal does it through her NE. Like, she'll be kind of curious about something, but it's not like in a way that's lighthearted or like happy-go-lucky. It's kind of like, ooh, like I'm gonna
that's one way that I think that's one way I think that Crystal could be different than the sort of bubbly stereotype of ENFPs. That Scorpio rising. But anyway, so let's see, we have Sagittarius.
Ooh, Sagittarius. Okay. So Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter, which is the biggest planet in our solar system. So Jupiter and Sagittarius are all about expansiveness, knowing more, seeing more, and then having like a belief system to keep you going. So and also the animal, or I guess like the symbol for it, is the centaur, like the half man half horse, and the symbol is an arrow. So he has like the arrow in his hand, and he's pulling the bow, Oh, sorry, he has the bow in his hand and he's pulling the arrow. And he just keeps going. Like he wants to see the world and he's gonna go for what he wants. And like, yeah, it's like, okay, so let's try to explain Sagittarius energy. And this one's a little bit harder for me. I had to like kind of learn it because we both have a ninth house Saturn.
Yeah,
and so the ninth house is the Sagittarius house in astrology. So or it's traditionally ruled
for
by
some reason Sagittariuses remind me of like NTP, ENTPs in particular. I don't really know why. Like it's hard for me to pick a function that goes with it.
I think Sagittarius is very it's like very NISE also in a weird way.
Yeah, I can see that.
And very
as
NE
well.
too. So I think of them as
almost more of a perceiving function than a judging function in a way.
Because I would say like since Gemini and Sagittarius are like the curiosity axis, I would say Gemini's maybe more like NESI, and then Sag is more like NISE. But I think
I don't know. I go back and forth on those, almost being even the opposite.
Really?
But tell me your point though.
Okay. So I think like so some keywords for Sag that you will see like on the internet and stuff is like, oh, these kind of people love to travel. There's fire sign also. I don't know if I mentioned that. They love to travel. They like to tell the truth how it is. And they're not very known for being tactful. And so it's kind of like once Scorpio comes out of the ashes, like when you go into Scorpio, it's like you're entering a fire and like, all this shit's happening and you're kind of burnt down to the ground. And then you come out into Sagittarius and you're like, oh, I'm still here. What is my purpose? I think Sagittarius is a lot to do with purpose, and it's a lot to do with your own like beliefs in the world and how you find them. And so I think like you can use either NE or SE to explore that, like whether it's like philosophical beliefs. Sag is connected to philosophy a lot, because it's not like tangible information the way like Mercury or like Gemini is. It's kind of just what you know to be true in a way, or what could possibly be true.
The thing that makes me almost think of Sagittarius as being NE is that they're such nomads. In a way.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to have this sort of sense of deep purpose deep down. Like they like to see everything and survey everything, which I guess could also be SE. I don't know. I feel like I also don't have any planets in Sagittarius, and I have planets in almost every sign. So, and I have had a couple of negative experiences with Sagittarius people. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I'm not a very good spokesperson for Sagittarius.
I think it's definitely like, since it's a mutable sign too, it can express itself like in different ways. But like, a common theme, I guess, is kind of what you said, where like they will kind of just act like nomads, like in some way or another.
Which they're fire signs as well, and I see that as very conflicting with Leo, in a sense. I notice the differences between them a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
they still are similar. I just personally notice the way that they're different.
Yeah, I feel like Leo is kind of like, since it's a fixed sign, it kind of just like it stays in its own lane, like you said. But Sag doesn't really care. I feel like actually a good metaphor to describe this, I think, would be the college student, because when you're in college, you kind of just don't give a fuck. You're like, I'm gonna try everything. I'm gonna live my life how I want to, like live fast, die young, or whatever. Like it's like the free-spirited archetype, I feel.
I feel like it's sort of connected to being a type 7 in the Enneagram.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I think a lot of it is just about feeling free and feeling, since I guess you tore down all the shitty aspects of yourself in the Scorpio part of your life, wherever this falls, then once you come out, you have this optimism because you're like, yeah, I'm free.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
don't have these things weighing me down anymore. That's why Pluto gets rid of stuff. It's like, sorry, I keep going back to Scorpio.
Oh, no, it's
yeah, I feel like it's a good context for where Sagittarius goes. But yeah, it's like I'm not weighed down by all this stuff. I can go wherever. I can see whatever I want, and I know what I want because you know, I've gotten rid of all the parts of me that are not real. And like, I don't know, I just think Sagittarius is a really fun-loving energy. A lot of people correlate it with also like Santa Claus, or like somewhere where you want to expand a lot. Somewhere also, I think in a negative way, it can be where you go overboard on things. So yeah, like yeah, some people tend to go overboard in college. I think that's like a main theme, like whether it's like drugs or like, you know, they're just, ooh, knocked out my headphones. Or like, you know, I guess just not really knowing your limits as much when you're younger, but you're out in the world, so, you know, you're kind of just living life. I don't know, that's the only way I know how to describe it.
Yeah, and then on to Capricorn. That is when you're like, oh wait, I can't do that forever, I need a job.
yeah, that's like, yeah, okay, I feel like we understand that part because we have Saturn in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like yeah, onto Capricorn. Yeah, once you get out of college, you're like, oh shit, life's not as fun anymore. Consequences exist. And Capricorn and Saturn, so Saturn is the planet that rules Capricorn. It is associated with the goat, and the devil. But it's not actually the devil, and I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Capricorn is kind of about your ambition, your future, the sacrifices you want to make in order to get what you want, to climb higher. And so since it's the goat, it's like it's always climbing, wanting to reach heights. And it's not in the way of like Aries, where they'll really push for what they want. I feel like it's kind of a slow and steady thing where you'll put in the work that is necessary, and it's like a long haul type of approach.
When I think of Capricorns, I think of there being a rock in front of them, and instead of moving around the rock, they push the rock.
Wow. I've never thought of that.
I don't know if that's accurate, or if that's even maybe more Taurus in some ways. No, Taurus wouldn't. I don't know. I just feel like Capricorns don't ever think to make things easier on themselves, because they almost like they think that life is hard and that's how it is. And so they're very strong because they handle it, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. See, okay. I have a Capricorn moon, so this like really resonates with me, what she just said. So I feel like literally Capricorn is the feeling of your car breaking down on the side of the road. It's when bad shit happens and you can't do anything about it, so you kind of just need to push through. It's the winter, that's why, you know.
Yeah, and you know, you have to figure it out. You can't, nobody else is gonna do it for you, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think with the concept of the Saturn return, and if you guys don't know what that is, I'll just briefly explain it. It's when you turn 30, your Saturn sign, and the transiting Saturn enters the same sign as your natal Saturn. So basically what your life comes to is you'll get a big reward if you've been putting in the work, and you'll become an expert. Yeah, you'll become an expert at the thing that's been just fucking up your life time after time again. And it's not the type of... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say really quick, people think of Saturn as a scary planet because Saturn is about like almost karma in a way, like, and they're like testing you. But what I like about Saturn is that you might think that life isn't fair, And in many ways, life is not fair, but Saturn is fair. Saturn is like the part of the world that is fair. If you reap what you sow, or sow, I don't know which one that is. You get what you put in.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's totally it. And I think like I guess the difference, like if people are confused between this and Taurus, is like Taurus will kind of work slowly and do what they want, but they're trying to like maintain a comfort. Saturn is like the opposite of comfort. I think it's like it's not like the type of thing that like will destroy you like Pluto does. It's just like it's like not this again. You're feeling it again, and it makes you feel like life's unfair, like the universe is kind of just kicking you down and they don't care about you.
Yeah, and millennials have Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn, and so we're a very Capricorn generation that is just like we're strong, we're getting through it, but like very burnt out. I feel like it is the Capricorn energy of millennials.
I think it really is. And I kind of want to talk about like the Cancer Capricorn axis.
Yeah.
But I think so when you're burning out because of Saturn or like because of Capricorn, I think it's like you are sacrificing things because you want like that good karma for what you did. And it's like, yeah, some people don't believe in karma, but it's like, you know, it's literally like a physical law. If you put energy somewhere, you're gonna have to get it back somehow. Like it's still, it exists somewhere in the equation, because you can't create or destroy matter or energy. But so I think it's just like putting in the work, wanting to climb higher so you can get what you want. And like a lot of people associate it with like status and reputation too. Like it's kind of once you leave your home, like Cancer is the home and it's the comfort and like the emotional security of just being inside your house, because nobody feels as comfortable as they do at home. Capricorn's kind of giving that up because you know, you don't want your life to be so stagnant all the time, and you're kind of using like the things you found through like the Sag and the Scorpio energy to make your life better and to, I don't know, climb higher and feel accomplished. And I think that's...
Tell me if you agree with this or what you think of this. Is that for me, whenever I think about the Capricorn and Cancer axis, and these are axes similar to how I think that you can think of these as similar to how like FI and TE are on the same axis. They're energies that are opposites, but they complement each other also, and they're made of like almost the same stuff. So just a different system, but similar way of looking at it. But anyway, Capricorns sort of feel everything, and I feel like Cancers feel everything, and I feel like Capricorns numb the things that they don't care about and feel like intensely about the things that they do, in a way. Like they almost like zone in, like they're just as emotional, but in order to get by, they numb certain things and decide which areas of life are worth getting upset about.
That's a very FIT thing. I think it is.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
And so like I feel like on the other side of that, it's like with Cancer, if you're too much into Capricorn energy, let's just assume like and a lot of people are right now because we have so many planets in Capricorn, and like I think everyone's just collectively feeling like weird.
If you feel like life is hard right now, it's because of all the Capricorn energy.
And Capricorn also rules like businesses, structures, things like that. So a lot of like business is crumbling right now. You can kind of see that. And people are not wanting to work the same jobs they did years ago. It's because like the way society is structured right now is not very conducive to like our emotions. Like it's not
it's not what we want.
Yeah, and so like with too much Capricorn energy, I mean, it's obvious. It's like we're burnt out. Like millennials are burnt out. people are unhappy, people are like they feel like deprived. I think that's a big thing, like deprival and feeling soulless and kind of gray. I wouldn't say Capricorn is like if I were to describe it as a color, I would just think it's like gray or like a very ready like like a rusty shitty color. But sorry, that's so mean. No offense to you.
It's true.
But
I love Capricorns. They're my favorite earth sign.
Yeah, I love them too. But yeah, and so I think that's one side of like when you have too much Capricorn energy, that's obvious. But I think what people maybe realize or like they don't want to think about it as much is like when you have too much Cancer energy, it's like, you know, you're feeling so many things and I think of it, and I've experienced this a lot as a Cancer, is like I'll just lay in bed all day and like cry and like watch movies and just like eat. Every Cancer knows what I'm talking about, okay? Like don't lie, you're not better than this, and listen to the same album on repeat. And it's like you know, you'll get so caught in your feelings and like you'll be like just one day like, man, I'm so sick of this, I'm tired of like taking, usually it's like a situation in your life that's like making you feel bad. Or
it's Cancers just love music, by the way. I've never met a Cancer that doesn't love music.
They do.
Anyway. So to listen to the same album on repeat is so Cancer.
It's so Cancer. It's so like
I'd like to meet one Cancer that doesn't have a sad songs playlist.
Oh my god. Oh, we're like so like no, but yeah, like, and yeah, I think like, you know, when you feel your emotions afterwards, people think you're gonna get stuck in them and be like, oh, depressed forever. But you know, at some point you're like, man, I'm tired of this, I want to make my life better. And like, I mean, if you're not, you know, there's all different shades of mental health, and I'm not trying to make it sound like it's bad if you've been in a rut for a while, because like some things really do take longer to work through than others. And like if you try to suppress it like in a Capricorn way, I think like it's not going to be helpful. It doesn't work. And a lot of things aren't working in society right now. I think for people who want to build like a good family life, like you can't even get a house right now without like, unless you have an inheritance, or like it's not common for a person who's 30 to just buy a house. Like, I don't know. And so I think, sorry, I kind of went off there, but yeah, I think, you know, once you've sulked through your feelings, you kind of want to do something about it, and you want to like make your life better. And so that's when you put your feelings aside for a while to get something done. And so I think Capricorn energy is benevolent in its nature, and it is fair. It is about karma, and it's about like just putting in the work. And like anyone who has like achieved something in their life will they'll tell you like in a humble way, kind of like, it just took work. It's not like you can have gifts, you can have talents, but at the end of the day,
Leo, I feel like, is sort of like something you're born with as like your gift that you have to give to the universe. And Capricorn is like, anyone could have done it, just do it, sort of. Like, just do it. So I guess, so what functions come to mind? Because this is sort of tricky to me. I would say it's sort of ST. But I don't know. Go ahead.
I think a lot of it is like you said, like the FIT axis. So I feel like when, like in my case at least, when I have a dream in the FI, oh, are you good?
Sorry.
Yeah, so to me it's always like my FI has a dream, and I have something that like I know would make me really happy, even if it seems far off. And so I take action on it through TE. And so I feel like TE is Capricorn energy can be channeled through TE very effectively. It can be channeled through SE when you want to like climb the ladder, kind of. I feel like it's kind of like gaining power in the world in a way, and like gaining respect, reputation for the work you did. So I think that's a very SE thing. And I think it could also be like TI in a way. Me and Crystal were kind of talking about this last night, where we think like Capricorn is all about integrity, and it's like it doesn't matter what you do really, as long as you are what you say you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So side note, you you just said I have a dream, or when you have a dream, and then I was like, wait a minute, what's Martin Luther King's sign? He was a Capricorn. And then
Oh,
I'm
really?
like, why didn't I know that? Because Martin Luther King Day is like Monday. so,
Oh.
so like that was dumb of me to not realize that. But yeah, Martin Luther King was a Capricorn. So I think that energy is very
Whoa.
interesting.
Dang. Wow, what a
Yeah.
beautiful realization.
Yeah. When you
That's
said
Megan's and I.
yeah.
Dang. Yeah, like he went to jail and shit. Like he
Yeah.
went through some hard shit. And like if you read his manuscripts, like he definitely has the life of a Capricorn. And like
yeah.
oh my god, it's insane. I think he's an ENFJ too, right?
Yeah. Wait a minute. I feel bad now because so Jesus was a Pisces, right?
Yeah.
And not a Capricorn. But then I remember there was this tweet going around maybe a year ago that was like, name one Capricorn that would die for you. Oh, wait. Well, I know a Capricorn who would die for you, Martin Luther King.
Yeah, that's
But, you know, he didn't die for you. He died for everyone. He died
yeah.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess Jesus died for everyone. I don't know. That's interesting. No, I don't know.
Actually, now that you mention it with MLK, I think that in an FETI way, you can put aside your own like physical or emotional comfort for the sake of the greater good.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was his dream, was to like, for an FE purpose, yeah, he would put aside his own FI, like, or his own SI to just get that message out there and like to really implement it. And so I think Capricorn's also about like implementation. That's why it's related to like structure and government.
I almost feel like it's bad SI in a sense. I don't know. Because you're patient, but you almost have to ignore the physical discomforts in order to do it. So it could be an NP, an SP, or an NJ. But I mean, it's funny because my mom and sister are both Capricorns and they're SJs. But so I don't know. There's something in that relationship to SI that is important there, but
yeah, I think like, I guess in an SI way, a Capricorn SJ would be putting themselves through discomfort for the sake of their duty.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think
I feel like you could make a whole video about Cancer versus Capricorn because of your sun and moon. You probably understand the back and forth so much.
Oh my god, yeah. It's like it's been a huge theme of my life. Also Virgo and Pisces, but I'll tell you about that later.
My sister is a Cancer rising, Capricorn sun, and so I always think about that. She deals with that as well, but
yeah,
anyway.
and I mean, also with you, like you have a 10th house moon in Aries, and so I feel like a lot of that is it's like making yourself uncomfortable or like making something uncomfortable.
Well, astro.com says that I'm a Capricorn dominant, which I don't necessarily agree. Well, I can see it, but most of like all of my Capricorn planets are generational, but it also has a lot of aspects. So that's why.
So you have a lot of outer planet aspects. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because because it's like all my Capricorn action going on in my 7th house, my Cancer action around the ascendant, and then Aries in the 10th. And so all of the Capricorn in the 7th is going to my Mercury in my ascendant, but opposite of that, and also to my Aries, and also trine my Scorpio. So, yeah. Anyway, but I do resonate with the Capricorn. And also since I'm a Capricorn descendant, a thing about your 7th house is that it's sort of like what you look for in a partner in a way, but it's also like who you are in relationships. I'm Cancer energy when you meet me on the street. For those of you watching my videos, you might think that I'm more of an Aries sort of person because social media is more of your 10th house actually. But if you were just seeing me on the street, you might, or like if you met me for the first time, you might see my Cancer energy. But how am I in relationships? I'm very Capricorn because I want it to work and I want it to be stable, with my one-on-one relationships. But
yeah, that's a great point. And I do see a lot of Capricorn energy in you.
yeah.
And when you bring up the descendant, if you guys don't know, your rising sign, also known as your ascendant, basically whatever sign is opposite to that will be your descendant. And so, yeah, what Megan explained hers, but for mine, like, since I'm a Leo rising, I have an Aquarius descendant, and I think when people get to know me, they realize I'm like weirder than they expected.
Oh yeah. That's
Or
interesting.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and like I don't know, I just like really get along with Aquarius rising people. Like
Yeah.
a lot of my friends have just been either Aquarius sun or Aquarius rising, or moon, and like
I
yeah,
just
I
realized
don't know.
something, that I seem open and accessible, but I'm actually harder to get to know than one would think.
Yeah,
think.
I think that's very true about Megan, and I think
Yeah.
she's I think like in the best way possible, like she
Roast me.
no.
No, but go ahead.
I can't roast people. I'm a Cancer.
A Cancer with a TI blind spot. Anyway.
No, but like yeah, I don't know. I just get the sense that like Megan really wants what's best. Like you really want what's best for yourself, and like that's. I wouldn't say like you make yourself super uncomfortable, but I do think you sacrifice a lot to do what you do, and I don't know, that was like the first thing I saw about you, so yeah.
Really, that's good. Well, that's also sort of my Scorpio North Node as well.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
But yeah, discomfort is my comfort zone. It's weird.
Dang, that's so crazy.
Yeah, if I don't feel comfortable, that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that's also, I mean, not even just the Scorpio North Node, but the Taurus South Node. That's why it feels uncomfortable. But anyway.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't relate to it as much. Like I think I'm used to feeling uncomfortable, but I'm trying to make myself, because I have an 8th house South Node, so it's kind of like a Scorpio-ish South Node.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I have a 2nd house North Node, and like I feel like it's not natural for me to like want material pleasures or like want to like just, relax or stuff like that, but yeah, I'm just used to shit going down and shit like being crazy, and like I don't know, it doesn't surprise, like when things happen, like bad things happen, it doesn't really surprise me. But yeah, I'm trying, I guess, like to make my life a little more stable, and so I feel like that's a common thing for ENFPs or like ENPs. But yeah, like everyone's gonna have a different life path, and it's gonna be completely like unique to you, and your birth chart will kind of tell you how that goes. But
yeah, so let's try and wrap up the last 2 signs, and then maybe say a few things, and then I think I would love to make more videos on these topics very soon, because this is super fun. But okay, so Aquarius, what you were kind of just talking about Aquarius with your descendant. So do you want to let us know about the symbolism and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. So Aquarius is the 11th sign of the zodiac. And this is ruled by the planet Uranus, and the symbol is the water bearer. So it's like a woman pouring water. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's like a weird one, but it kind of makes sense, because I feel like Aquarius is they're always wanting to bring like new things to the table. And just side note, Aquarius is totally my favorite sign. I think you guys are like cool as fuck. I love you guys.
I like don't know enough Aquariuses. And I don't have any Aquarius in my chart, but I love how it sounds, but I don't know it up close and personal as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of essential to what Aquarius is, because
Mm.
you know, they always get like pegged as being distant or whatever, but a lot of people don't like truly understand them. And so I'm in 11th house, Sun and Mercury, so I do feel like it's colored my sun sign a little bit. I am like a Cancer sun, so that's the energy I
Yeah.
bring, but like Aquarius theme things have always been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I feel like with Aquarius, they've already left the earth. So they're like alien. They
It's a very, like, it rules technology, right?
Yes, absolutely, it rules technology. It rules the internet. Things like aliens, kind of like esoteric things, are Aquarius territory. Things that like don't are just like contrarian, I would say. Like, that's the best word I can think of. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
kind of just want to change things up, destabilize things. So Uranus is like the planet of like change, and this change can be for the better of society, and it usually is, because I think Aquarius is also co-ruled by Saturn, so they kind of want these changes to be implemented, and they want them to make things better. But you know, if like, let's say there are a lot of Aquarius people out there who they just kind of like to stir shit up, and that's not bad, you know, like they just want things to be interesting, they want it to be different. They are kind of cool-headed, like they're not as they're not like Leos. Like, I feel
People
like when
always
you're,
talk about them as being detached, and I think that
yeah,
what they do is they look from a bird's eye view of society. Honestly, it reminds me of kind of NI and FE
yes,
in a way, maybe
yes,
even TI.
I totally agree with that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a detachment. So if Leo, like, if they're known for their ego, which is not a
Mm-hmm.
bad thing, by the way, if they're if they're known
Mm-hmm.
for their ego, Aquarius is like the detachment of your ego.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like you just know, like, you're looking at what's good for society, you're looking at what hasn't been done yet, like um what could be better, what could change. Like, that's why, you know, innovation is ruled by Aquarius, and it's like known as like the crazy genius person. So
Also, like, working
yeah.
together. I think that it's a very FE and TI hybrid. It doesn't seem like one more than the other in a way. Like, and it's interesting because I'm an FE dominant, but I'm a Leo. But I think that I have a strong sense of who I am that comes from the Leo. And Aquarius is FE in the sense that it's looking at what's best for society, but it also views society as a system. I feel like it might even be almost like an ETP or an IFJ, almost like the way that FE and TI could be in the middle. It reminds me of that energy.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think I definitely
Mhm.
think of ETP, NTP, INTP, INFJs. Yeah, just like it is really about like seeing what the world needs, and in kind of a detached way,
Yeah.
like, because I think to really like see what the world needs, you need to let go of like your notions of what feels good. And I think like with Leo, like, with
Hmm.
Leo, if it's being like the inner child, it's like you're kind of looking for what feels good. You're kind of navigating life by your intuition and like what you want. But like Aquarius is kind of letting go of that and seeing like, oh, what does everyone need? And that's kind of like a signature path in their life, to just like be aware of that. And
Yeah.
I guess they're fine with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, like a lot of Aquariuses I know, they, when I listen to them talk, like they're not really talking about themselves. I mean, they might, like, as an anecdote, but the main topic of conversation will usually be like something that's going on, or like a
Yeah.
phenomena, like, yeah,
Yeah.
conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Just kidding. Not always. Like, I think a lot of
Yeah.
them are like very rationally minded people, and
Yeah.
they're very like creative. Oh, go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, it's worth noting too that we are sort of on the cusp / entering the age of Aquarius. That every astrological age is 2,000 years long, and there's even things in the Bible that talk about when Jesus is talking about the end of times. Um, some say that he was not actually talking about the end of the earth, but he was actually talking at the end of the age. because when he says, I'll be with you till the end of the time, the actual word that, the like Latin word or whatever language it was that was translated to English didn't even necessarily mean time, it meant age. And so, and there's symbolism in the Bible at the end about look for the water bearer, which is very interesting.
Oh, that's so interesting.
It's almost like Jesus as this Pisces figure handing us off, saying, I will be with you, I will be your symbol until the age of Aquarius, when you'll see the water bearer. So I'm pretty sure I saw that in the movie The Zeitgeist, which is kind of conspiracy-ish, but also talking about how all religions have roots in astrology. So if you are one of those people that think that astrology is not scientific and all of that, but you also believe in Jesus Christ, I would say that you are a little hypocritical, because it's all just it's a belief system and it's not science. And so to discredit it by saying that it's not science doesn't really make any sense, because it's not trying to be science. So,
exactly. It's not trying to be science.
Yeah.
That's the main point. Like, like Megan said, it's interpretative. A lot of people who criticize religious beliefs, any belief systems, like, yes, there are certain ones, like a lot of people can misinterpret things, or like they interpret it a certain way that's like not conducive to their lives. But I think we're kind of moving past that now. Like, I think now it's becoming more about like creating your own religion and like following things that help you get through life.
Yeah, and if you sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, yeah. Like, and not like feeling like it's all just like a random, like nihilistic universe. Like, I mean, if you want to believe that, if you're more comfortable believing that, it's like, I guess no one can tell you otherwise. But there is a reason that religion has permeated society for this long. It's because it has helped us. It has helped us get through, and it's real. Like, I mean, like, some things, like, I guess you could question, but astrology is definitely real. Like, things have happened.
I will say, or go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Wait, no, finish, because I actually just forgot what I was going to say. So, because I got interrupted by another point. So, what were you saying?
Oh, it's okay. So, yeah, I mean, like, astrology, the thing is, it's the broad strokes. So it can mean many things. It can, like, people can interpret it a certain way. It doesn't mean what they're saying is true.
Okay, yeah, that actually leads right to what I was about to say, is that if you're one of those people that views the Bible as an allegory, which a lot of Christians do, or a lot of whatever belief you are, just view this as more, you can find meaning in these symbols. You don't have to view it as super strict. But then if you are one of those people that do tend to view the Bible very literally, then you might have more trouble with this, because it's not very literal. But it also doesn't mean that, I personally don't think that you have to choose between being a Christian or believing in astrology, because they don't really disconnect in my belief as well. But another thing that about the age of Aquarius is that in human development, we used to be very spiritual, and we did not have any concept of science. And there were philosophers that would talk about the meaning of life in this deep way, and they didn't have a way to test to see if it was true. The science age sort of made us lose faith in a lot of ways, but it also helped us progress. And what the age of Aquarius is actually there to do is combine that. How can we become spiritual again without getting rid of science? And modern science, like with quantum physics, is actually proving some of the ancient wisdom that was there before. So it's almost like we're going full circle, and that's what the age of Aquarius is supposed to do. And the age of Aquarius, like, it's not a coincidence that there's so many astrology YouTubers and Twitter accounts like popping up, is because more and more people are finding meaning in this, because more and more recent science is proving that this could be possible. So that's my spiel on that.
Yeah, no, that's like, oh my God, it's such interesting stuff. Like, I love when you talk about it. But yeah, I think like another example of kind of that separation between the scientific method and what is it, like spirituality would be in modernism, when the rationals and like the romantics, yeah, sorry, in the Renaissance, yeah, they were like kind of separating, and that's how they were understanding like these certain parts of our psyche, which I think everyone has. And so like, yeah, you know, the romantics weren't wrong, the rationals were not wrong, they just had different purposes, and we need both to survive. And so I think like, yeah, in the future it's going to be more of a helix between the two, instead of just like people being separated. And I think maybe personality type will
it could be sort of feeling and thinking in a sense.
Yeah, like I think I don't know if the lines will blur. Like I think we needed to understand like individually what these things mean, but we will still know what they mean. They'll just be working together more harmoniously.
Yes.
Yeah,
love that.
so.
I can't wait to finish. I'm in the middle of reading a book about the age of Aquarius right now, and I can't wait to finish and potentially make more videos about that. But anyway, so let's go to Pisces.
Oh yeah. Wait,
or did you have something else to say on that?
Yeah, I had one more thing to say about Aquarius. Yeah, so Meghan mentioned that she was born in the Uranus and Neptune and Capricorn generation. And so a signature of, so this is Gen Y, like millennial. So if you consider yourself a millennial, like if you were born between, I want to say 1980 and 1995.
Yeah.
Something like that. I might be a little bit off, so don't quote me. But yeah, then you're a millennial, and you relate to having big dreams and maybe having them shattered, maybe yeah, like working hard for your dreams, and like that's just a very permeating thing. Whereas and I feel like it was also the conclusion to modernism, where people always felt like they need to progress and like get better. That was kind of a mentality that people had for like a long time.
And a lot of millennials right now, with all that Capricorn energy, they have been fighting their entire lives. They went through college and they took shitty jobs because they wanted to follow their dreams. And now they're realizing that that dream's not there because businesses are shattering and the American dream is not there anymore. And it's like, oh shit, I'm burnt out now because I believed in this dream and now it's not real. So that's what's happening now that Pluto is in Capricorn now. So
absolutely. And and so like Meghan was, she was born during that time.
I was born in 94.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm actually Gen Z kind of. I have Uranus in Aquarius and Neptune Aquarius and Jupiter. So I think like everyone who was born in my time, like from 97 and 98 onwards, until, wait, I want to say, I'm not sure, I want to say like 2010 or something. The age of Aquarius people, like you can tell like they don't have this same attitude towards like I guess making it as much. So like everyone I kind of graduated in high school, some people wanted to make it, some people were kind of in that mentality, probably Capricorns, but and you know I kind of was too, but like I think for the most part like everyone was kind of more chillax about things. They were more detached. They were more like, hey, we're gonna make things happen, but it's gonna be for like a change. It's gonna be like for like social progress, not just to achieve things like for myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I feel like Gen Z?
Gen Z. Yeah.
Gen Z, they're so into social justice. Like
that's
so much. Makes like I thought I was into it, but just to think, I mean, I graduated college in 2016, and I feel like college kids now would think that I was problematic if they looked at how I was in college. No, but I'm just thinking about how fast that has changed.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all like
Aquarius. I mean, I didn't even know that I was bisexual until after college. And I feel like everyone is already talking about those things. Like people in college now, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like so much of society has progressed so quickly. And I think part of it has to do with Gen Z getting old enough to sort of have some sort of influence. Not quite yet, but getting there.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
They're
that's
like
true.
the
There's all
Aquarius
this
people.
yeah, there's all like this new romance. I think a lot of Gen Z kids are leftist, like they're more on the left side, even if they have family that's not. I
They
don't
all
want to
have
say like
internet friends. They all have
yeah,
internet friends.
yeah, and like we always spend time on the internet. Like I mean, I was the older part of that, so like I kind of had slow internet growing up, but I definitely always had like games and stuff. Like there was never a time where I didn't have internet. And so yeah, I feel like it's definitely a signature of us. It's a very different from like millennials.
Yes.
And yeah, like
and then there's
yeah,
also sort of people that are a cusp of millennial and Gen Z that have like, is it Neptune or Uranus? One of them switched sooner than the other.
oh yeah, actually sorry, that's what I have.
Yeah.
Uranus in Aquarius and then Neptune in Capricorn. So
Okay,
I'm
yeah, you're like a cusp.
yeah, the cusp. And then the generation after me, I think that's when it really like got set into stone. But yeah. So that's I think all I want to say about the age of Aquarius, and we should definitely talk about that for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay,
Pisces.
Pisces.
Oh my
Jesus is a
gosh.
Pisces.
Oh my god. Very like, I think one of the most interesting signs too. So Pisces is ruled by Neptune. It is the final sign of the zodiac. And its symbol is the fish, which is like, you know, as a
Which,
lot of
funny enough, is the Christian symbol in a lot of ways.
yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
No, you're fine. Yeah, that yeah, it's the Christian symbol because Jesus was a Pisces, and some people even believe that Jesus was. I mean, this is like a conspiracy theory, but some people think he was not an actual person, and that the equinox shift from Virgo to Pisces was kind of the time that Jesus was around, and that's why all those stories were written about him. And so yeah, I don't know if that's true or not, but like yeah, it was just interesting. And so Pisces is a water sign, and I think it's very interesting that the final sign of the zodiac is a water sign. Because there is truth in feeling, and I think when it comes to like accepting these ideas of astrology and religion and like vibrations and stuff requires a degree of like accepting that feeling is truth, and it ties everything together. And that's why like I think Pisces is the sign of it's collective feeling, like it's kind of like going off of Aquarius. It's after the
I was just going to say really quick, what's interesting to me is it strikes me as more FI than FE, but at the same time it's collective. So I don't know.
I honestly like, I think like a lot of people talk about Scorpio being like very, you know, fascinating stuff, and it totally is, but I think Pisces is the most like perplexing sign because you can't pin it down, you can't like call it anything, and that's like the point of it. Like a lot of a lot of people who are Pisces sun, it's also a mutable sign, like they don't feel like they have a solid identity, they don't like they feel like they can change a lot, they kind of just go with the tides, they reflect what other people are thinking and feeling.
They're kind of like a mirror.
Yeah, they're kind of like a mirror, but at the same time they can detach in an FI way. That's why I think it's different from the other water signs, is because they can just kind of like go off into their own world and like they just know like the cosmos in their mind, and like they know that everything is kind of working as it's supposed to. And that's why Pisces are really chill, like really laid back, even if they don't know it consciously, like they know that oh, go ahead.
I feel like no matter what type you are, you will act more P-like than maybe your actual type. I mean, I have an ENFJ friend who's a Pisces sun who used to think that she was an ENFP, except for that she uses FE and NI and SE and TI. But Pisces, they have this go with the flow attitude to them. And
Yeah.
I don't know, she uses SE and NE a lot. She doesn't want to ever set any plans because she wants the universe to be in charge. She doesn't even want to guess on how she'll feel next week. So it's very hard to find time to hang out with her. So, but it's like they are listening to their internal compass, which sort of could be FI or NI. And okay, and it also sort of strikes me as NF in general.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's very NI too. I think
But also NE.
Yeah, it's like, it's just everything. Like, it's so crazy, but it works. Like, I think the fact that it does work, and it does like Pisces who follow the flow and things still fall into place. Like, that's kind of a thinking thing too. Like, it's organized, you know?
Yeah.
It has like, it's like, there's a method to the madness, but yeah, it's just like all the functions put into one. But I would say it's primarily like an NF thing. And maybe an NI thing, because I feel like so, okay, let me see. To compare it to the other water signs, I would say, so Cancer, like we said, is right at the shore of the ocean, and they're like snipping and trying to protect themselves. Scorpio is kind of at the bottom of the ocean. So they went too deep, and they like really want to understand like what's going on, what's lurking there. And we still don't know a lot about our ocean in the world, which I think is like very symbolic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then Pisces is the fish, so it kind of just like swims in the ocean, and it knows how to swim, and like it goes anywhere it wants. And so I feel like it's kind of in a way like our relationship to the universe, where like Cancer, or like our relationship to life. So like Cancer, you know, they're trying to protect themselves in life, and they're trying to, you know, just do that. And then Pisces just kind of like flows with life because they know everything will be okay, and like they know that they're saved. And I think that's like what Jesus was about. Like he kind of came to give this Pisces energy to us, so that we know that he is carrying us through, and that like we can swim and everything will be fine, as long as you know, we follow our heart and stuff like that.
I love that.
I love it too. It's so beautiful. Like,
yeah. And it's, I don't know why this is, but the way that the ages go backwards, like we were in the age of Pisces and now we're going to the age of Aquarius. It's interesting to me, but it's like it's backwards, but we're carrying that sense of faith and love with us into the age of Aquarius in a way.
Absolutely.
But yeah. So hopefully, or was there anything else you were going to say about Pisces? Because there's a lot more we could say. I was just going to say that hopefully, and you, if you think of something, let me know. But I was just going to say that hopefully you guys can sort of see how the functions do sort of relate to the signs, but it's not the end all be all, and we do all use all 8 functions, and so this is just another layer. I don't know, I'm still exploring this myself. I know
think
you
it
are too.
Really is. So this is why, like, maybe if you're if you have a certain type but you've related to functions that like don't fit into your 4 function stack, you could have other energies going on that like make like for example, like if you're an ENFP and you don't have like SE in your function stack, but you have like Aries energy, or you have something that will like propel your SE a little bit more, and you're like, oh well, maybe I'm an ESFP, then maybe it's because like you have something else in your chart, and it doesn't mean that you're not that type. It just means that like,
and that's why I think it's interesting to really look at the functions as being mental and in your mind and cognitive, and the energies of signs being like an energy. And so maybe if you are an ENFP who's an Aries, you might relate to SE, but then you realize, oh wait, I'm not actually using SE, I just have this energy that's similar to SE.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I do think though, like, I think that our top two functions have a lot of energy in some ways. And that would be related like maybe to our rising sign or to like different aspects. Like for example, I have a lot of like third house and like Gemini energy. So I have like more mental energy. I don't have a lot of physical energy because I don't have a lot of fire in my chart, unfortunately. But yeah, I think like it can be like so many combinations. So like don't let this limit you. Like you know, you can, if you want like to go into detail about it, we have that astrology and cognitive function group.
Join that Facebook group. And I know that I want to get into sort of combining these eventually. That's like part of my path. I'm just like in the process of it. And same with Christine. So if you have any like questions or anything like that, or even like if you've had ideas like this of your own, because I'm sure so many of you have had these ideas, but from what I've found, there aren't that many places on the internet that is specifically for talking about these interconnections. I feel like there's so much overlap between the Myers-Briggs communities and the astrology communities, but I don't see that many people talking about this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even though I would imagine so many of you thinking about it already.
Yeah. There's definitely like I'm always like I've seen like every article there is on MBTI. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and same with astrology. Like there's just not a lot of overlap between, like nothing really connects them. There's a lot with MBTI and the Enneagram, but I feel like those are like simpler theories. Astrology is already like very complex as it is, but yeah, I think it would be like a lot more practical if people could use it with their MBTI type, because you're more aware of like what's going on in your mind, and it's easier to like pinpoint the functions and then to see what's going on in your chart. That could be like the motivations that are like influencing that. So
and it's a cool thing that, okay, like Myers-Briggs or whatever is simpler to discover than your astrology chart, but it's a good thing that you don't have to discover your astrology chart because you just put in your time of birth. I mean, sucks for you if you don't know your time of birth. That's a whole other story. But I know that professional astrologers can like help you with that if you don't know your time of birth.
Yes, you can get a birth time rectification. There are a few astrologers I know who can do it, but yeah, it's like costs like maybe $100 or something.
Yeah. But it just, I think can, and we know from talking about your personality type that there are functions that are more conscious and there are functions that are less conscious. But at the end of the day, I personally believe that your type is almost describing your ego in a sense. And your astrology chart is going beyond your ego. And so that's why there seems to be so many aspects that maybe you've never even thought of. And so don't discount it if you see something that you don't necessarily relate to. Try and keep an open mind and play with it, like experiment with it and see if you find it being useful. So,
yeah.
Anything else you want to add, Christine?
Totally agree. Nope. I think that's it.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a long one, but it has been so much fun to talk about, and it's giving me a lot to think about. So thank you so much for joining me, Christine, and thank you guys all for watching. All right, bye.